Okay, I'm back again, Animoji Gaming. So today I tried not to do the Animoji for the Xbox 360 Fat Jasper Elite, since this one is actually done directly on my Mac, but I'm not sure which Mac that I was using, but I think it is most likely the MacBook Air itself, because this is probably one of the lightest game that I ever played.
Hi, I'm Brooke Burke, and I play
Maybe
Rachel Teller in Need for Speed Underground
basically
2.
this is just
Playing a racer in the game was a lot of fun,
some
but on the streets, I
games
make sure to drive safely
basically
and
released on the
responsibly.
PlayStation
When
2,
it comes
which
to racing,
obviously
make sure you only do it
pretty
on the
light
streets of
and
Underground 2.
have not a very
So
big
remember to
size,
always
since
use your seatbelts and obey
yeah,
the
the
laws of the
graphic
road.
quality is not intense. So yeah, that's the reason why. So basically this is the Need for Speed Underground 2. So I'm actually prefer to play the Need for Speed Underground 1, which doesn't have an open world features. So even though there is a free ride, but basically it is not as dedicated as the Underground 2, which basically everything must be done directly, so you need to go to certain places in order to compete with the other players. So that's the reason why the story is also not really satisfying, perhaps, because yeah, they're trying to provide you some sort of community for some reason, which I just don't understand. So but any kind of modification or other features, it is most likely the same. And there's also some improvements which was never really come back into the Need for Speed, perhaps until the modern Need for Speed, which I don't know, it is still not the same, because there is some unnecessary features which basically never really matters, but it is actually quite cool, especially during the early 2000, where there are so many people who like to modify those cars. So for some reason I tried to use gamepad, but I'm not sure which gamepad that I was actually use. So but I think it is possible to play with the gamepad, and this is basically the Windows game, so it is not technically official to be played on the Mac OS, but since it is not really a heavy or a complex game, so that's the reason why it can easily be played using
Hey, Hotshot, you're cleaning up out there.
package using so it's just related to the Mac OS for some reason there's a
Took
way
out
to
Eddie, scored the babe.
understand
Have you thought about what's next?
this is actually
I don't think there's anyone out there that can beat you.
should start from the for some reason just totally got ready. I just don't get it, just like any other Need for Speed continuation story, like the
We like what we see.
Most Wanted
Throwing my
Carbon.
posse for you, and I ain't taking no for an answer. What's it gonna be?
So that's the reason why the faster stuff is still the faster.
Hey, the party's kicking and they want their stars. You better get here quick. Hello?
So just don't get it, just a
everything's
simple
cool.
crash, and we are even
I just had to take care of a
broke and need to
little
start
problem.
over. Or maybe it is actually we are trying to fly into another city, because the first one was in the airport, and as you can see there's a plane flying. I just don't get it, why. Maybe if he tried to continue on the same city, they
I
were
figured you
going
might want to change things up to help clear your
get
head.
killed.
Can't say I blame you. Hey, listen. When you get to Bayview, my gal Rachel will hook you up. She's loaned you her ride. It's at the airport waiting.
So
Now it's her
basically, we
baby,
are
so be
trying to
gentle. Good luck, bro.
meet
Be seeing ya.
with the friends that was supposed to be available on the first underground. So they're obviously used the similar car, which is the 350Z Feral 80. I just don't get it why they just too lazy to do the real action, the real green screen. And also one that maybe they just try to reduce the cost on developing this game, and that's the reason why.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Rachel, Samantha's friend. I heard your plane finally got in.
So
Well,
that's the
welcome
reason
to
why they
Bayview.
tried to do it again on also one that. Besides,
Hey, if you haven't already guessed it, what you're hearing is the car's short message system, otherwise known as SMS. I don't know if you're familiar with it, so I set it up for first-time use. Read the instructions to find out how it
I really
works.
tried to complete several times because it is just
Now check out the
pretty
menu
unique.
map. It's simple to use, but make sure you get
Even
familiar
though
with it.
seems to be
This is the big
static,
city, you know.
just
I need my ride back soon,
several
so meet me at the
race
car lot
until
highlighted on the
100
mini map.
race, and then we just complete the game. Yeah, it's still pretty unique on how you can customize the cars. Just basically always the favorite features and Need for Speed games, unlike the PlayStation 3 or Xbox 360 era, Need for Speed,
Bunch of
where you
losers gathering for
just
some
cannot
races. Now it's a chance to add some
any
easy
personal
coin to your account.
modification with your
I'm sending you the
cars.
locations right now. I'll see you there.
So there's copyright music as well, probably. I'm not sure how can I mute those songs. And it is just so hard to record any kind of Need for Speed because basically the radio can be turned off, but during that time I just never really consider it, and I just not realize that the YouTube copyright is just so sensitive that even with the loud car sound like this, it is still detected as the copyright. So that's the reason why. I just don't get it. Maybe the controller is just not appropriate yet because yeah, playing this on non-native operating system is obviously not as perfect as when you try to play this game on Windows. That's the reason why. Maybe we just cannot race with this car yet because we need to buy our own cars. I'm not sure. But for some reason I still see some lags, even though if you talk about the graphics that exists on the MacBook Air, it is actually pretty good, which is the Intel HD 5000, which is better than my Mac Mini, even though my Mac Mini is basically have a higher clock speed for the i5 processor, but I'm not sure which one is actually faster, because yeah, there used to be a different type of processor as well. So MacBook Air obviously used the U processor type, while the Mac Mini is the M processor type, which is a higher, even though there is the higher processor, which is usually used for gaming or high-end laptop during that time, which is the HQ, if I'm not mistaken. So I cannot even enter the car lot to buy the cars, and I just don't get it. Why? Maybe I need to set up the controller first, since this is just 10 minutes run. So there's still 21 minutes remaining, which is pretty long as usual. And after this, I need to do several minutes of the Sleeping Dogs, perhaps, but I'm not sure, because the Sleeping Dogs Xbox 360 footage is around 40 minutes, and I'm not sure, and I obviously cannot have those many time because I need to have a meetings in 45 minutes, so I'm not sure. Maybe I will not try to do that, or try to do another video instead, because there are several unboxing which I haven't created the Animoji as well. Yeah, to figure out controllers entering the building or entering certain events.
Finally, where have you been with my ride, huh? There better not be a single mark on it.
Sam claims you can drive.
Maybe so, but you ain't using my ride.
Use your cash to pick out a set of wheels. I'll call you later.
Or maybe try to create the similar cars as well. I think it is not possible, because the vinyl is always a unique things unless you're trying to mod this game, which is available to apply any of those unique vinyl into any cars, which is pretty interesting, like the Need for Speed Most Wanted Redux. But I'm not sure whether the Underground or Underground 2 has many mods like the Most Wanted, which is the biggest mods ever released on the Need for Speed franchise. So I tried to buy the Honda Civic Coupe, which is pretty cool cars. Because the other seems to be like just the regular city cars, while this one is definitely not, because this regular city car should be the 4 doors version one. So the world obviously feels so empty, just like any others Need for Speed open world games, or this is actually, because yeah, they're obviously non-civilian, because for some reason that's when racing games try to add civilian without an ability to leave the vehicle, it is just pretty weird, to be honest. And then I just finally got crashed for no reason, because that's what the crew tried to create, and to be honest, I don't really like it at all, because it just feels like a simulators, or I don't know, it's just weird. Basically, if you talk about the time where this game was actually released, it is actually the time where the Fast and Furious are quite popular, even though maybe it is already the time where the Too Fast and Furious.
Let me give you the 411. Everything in the Bayview race scene goes through me. And if you haven't noticed yet, it's the place to be. The race scene here is big. Whatever you like, you can find it, if you know where to look. Drag, drift, circuits, and way more.
when
The scene runs so
Fast and
deep, we're racing in
Furious was
places you
released,
wouldn't believe.
there used to
Of course,
be
with that comes an
a
opportunity for
game
some
that
serious money.
wanted to
Best
be
of all, there's an
created
invitation-only
exactly
series called the
following the
Underground
movie,
Racing League for the
the
elite
first movie,
driver,
the Fast
where
and
the coin
Furious,
and the
and
props
also
are off the
the
hook.
Fast and Furious movie.
All it takes is
So
the right
that's the
cred
reason
and the proper
why
connections.
this looks so
Remember,
cool,
this is my town.
and I
You're a
always
guest,
like to
so
watch the
max
trailer
respect.
because
Round
for
back is
some
Tommy.
reason
He's a
it's
wizard
so
under the hood.
it
He'll hook
is
you up.
really
Hey,
represent
dude,
the game.
Rachel set it up so you can handle all your business out of the
And
garage.
I
She set
never
aside some
see
room for you.
any
Come on, I'll show you where you can store your
that's
rides.
basically those kind of user interface. Maybe the closest one is actually the Street Racing Syndicate, but yeah, the Street Racing Syndicate has a really weird story, and it still feels different because Street Racing Syndicate is most likely like always a night time, I guess, during the open world. I'm not sure. Quite forgot. But the reason why the game was actually cancelled, never ever released into the market, is because they just afraid to compete with the Need for Speed Underground. And to be honest, basically, Need for Speed Underground is not that good, especially the second one, or even the Underground Rivals. Well, the Underground Rivals is actually better than this, even though it is like the combination between the first Underground and the second one, I guess, because I think the type of the car, there is no SUV on those games, so it's most likely closer to the first Underground. But I think there is the Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution, which is obviously not available on the first Underground because there's only Lancer EX, which is just so bad. So,
Yo, listen here. You're about to be fully felt by the street cross. This is the hottest new kick slamming the race world. These here tracks are tight. There's very little room to bend the curves, so make sure your ride's dialed in right. Do whatever it takes to get that other guy out of your grill, because the inside lane is where you want to be. The best line in and out of the turns is going to shave serious time off your run. So, tune it for quick sprints and tight slam-down control. You know what I'm saying? Alright then, get out there and go savage, bro.
Fast and the Furious games, but yeah, sadly, it just never really appear. And hopefully someday it will still possibly appear, even though there are so many Fast and Furious games, which is just so bad. I never really seen one that's basically cool unless it was actually a mod for other games or even additional content such as the Forza Horizon, which is basically still a Forza game but with Need for Speed cars. So basically, yeah, at that time it is basically a little bit better, even though it's still not as good as the dedicated games if it is really possible to be created, because there is the Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift official games, which is pretty dedicated to the movie. But yeah, if you talk about the setting, is basically still in the Tokyo, which is most likely pretty similar like any other Tokyo racing game, such as the Wangan Maximum Tune, perhaps. So that's the reason why, yeah, it was a good game, but it's just never really similar to the Fast and the Furious that's basically want to be released previously before those games. So yeah, that's the racing game that we never really experienced. So we're already halfway, more than halfway of the video, so it's only 11 minutes remaining. But yeah, for some reason I don't actually do anything about the car, because basically the amount of cash that was retrieved after winning the race is still very small. So that's the reason why I cannot also do any kind of modification, perhaps, or using a trainer, since this is basically already so some of the data is
Hey, yo, man. Street drag is the influence behind everything we got.
of this game.
Check it like this. The RPM is the key to getting ahead of the competition. Launch at the right time and rocket into the lead with speed. But if you're slow about it, you'll end up at the back of the pack. Launch is followed by shift, so it's next. It's the daddy of success, so hit it up at the perfect shift point for max power. Now remember, if you slam it too soon or too late, you'll be coming in last.
There's no other device.
If the other guy gets past you, just chill and slide into his slipstream and sit in his draft. Gain precious speed and then make your move to bounce right on by. This is gonna be big, dog. You ready? Good. Go out there and prove yourself.
Be remaster or re-release by the EA, because they just concentrate on other modern Need for Speed games, such as the Need for Speed No Limits, perhaps, for the mobile version. So that's the reason why they just don't like to porting Need for Speed or porting stuff. And I just don't know how to shifting up the gears. So that's the reason why I got low engines. And I'm still trying to do it, because maybe I try to pause the recording and try to find out which button that can be used to shifting the gears, but it turned out I'm still technically failed until a certain time that I have already restarted several times. Then I finally win the drag race. Well, the previous race is just a circuit, but in the circuit in the drift arena, I just don't get it why those races basically exist. It is just really weird. So the other cars has already got a lot of modification, but I'm still use this car as a stock, which is really annoying. Basically, if you talk about the engine, I think it is most likely the same engine that was used on the previous Underground games, because they still feel like it. Even though, yeah, the previous Underground is pretty straightforward, so that's the reason why I do prefer to play those games over and over again rather than these games, which didn't have a lot of big prize as well after the race. So that's pretty annoying, because the race is just so many, or maybe we are trying to do it over and over in order to get sufficient money to do the modification. So yeah, it is just very weird, and there's actually a product placement from on this game as well. Maybe this game used to be a very popular game, so that's the reason why in the second one of the development they try to invite other companies which basically not related with the games itself, but it is basically can be done, since it just make the world seems to be more realistic, perhaps, with those real life. So they obviously try to sponsor this game, even though I'm not sure whether a games can only be developed using sponsor money, because obviously it still need to be created using stake. So that's the reason why some games were eventually failed, because the amount of profit that were later generated from the games cannot match with the production costs. And yeah, and that's also the reason why some good games, even though it is still profitable, but if it is considered not enough, they eventually get abandoned and never really develop again anymore, or even the sequel, like the True Crime Hong Kong, which eventually bought by the Square Enix and turned into the Sleeping Dogs, but the real developer eventually bankrupt, perhaps, I'm not sure, so they eventually cannot develop new games again. So that's the reason why. Even though it was supposed to be good games, because a direct continuation, even though it's may not a sequel, a direct sequel to the previous to Crime in New York City, but it still definitely feels pretty similar, because you're basically play as a cop, as a detective cop into criminal organization. So that's the reason why it's pretty interesting. Even for the story that was actually exists on the True Crime New York City, it is actually almost equal to the Grand Theft Auto 4 storyline, even though there are several weird things which is basically not logical enough, but it is actually quite interesting to be played, because yeah, it's just some sort of recover horror or mystery in the big cities. So because New York City vibe is always seems to be like a dark environment or something like that. Even though yeah, the actual one is not really like that, but it's still pretty interesting to see from those perspectives. Basically, there are several games that try to be dedicated on telling those kind of storyline, but it's still not as good as the True Crime New York City, because maybe they're still try to keep the game as realistic as possible. It's already 2 minutes remaining, and I'm actually started to get a little bit tired, even though I still have several minutes until my next meeting. So I think most likely I will do the unboxing instead, because yeah, creating an Animoji for the gameplay footage is actually a little bit bored as well, because it's just too long and it just seems to be pretty much repetitive. So that's the reason why I'm not sure why long YouTube videos is still somehow popular, even though as a viewer, I'm basically not really like to watch long YouTube videos, because yeah, it's just wasting my time, and try to do productive things in those many times instead, even though I'm still technically try to create those similar long video, but just for the sake of the collection, and it is already recorded anyway, so I just don't want to waste it. So I think this is most likely the last race that I was playing on this Need for Speed Underground 2 games, and I'm just not sure what other things that I want to do in this last 1 minute of video. So I decided to jump to garage, and I don't know what things that can be bought because everything seems to be still locked, because I just don't get it why. So maybe because the money that we had is also still not enough to buy those kind of upgrades, and it is just really annoying. That's the reason why I decided to never really play this game anymore. Even, yeah, as you can see, there is the Evolution 8 cars.